Hello everybody, the Zen of Ben is here, Ben Cola. Today is March the 19th at 6 p.m. I'm getting off to a little bit of a late start today. I got quite a few phone calls from you guys over the last few days wondering where I've been and what I've been up to, and I told you all I had some computer troubles. Boy, oh boy, it all started. Let me tell you about computer troubles here. About 2 weeks ago, I got a telephone call from some guy who sounded like he was from India. You know, Gupta, Gupta, Gupta. And he said he worked for Microsoft. And he said, my computer is telling me, I work for Microsoft, that your computer has got viruses and malware and it's sending out bad vibes. And you could be infecting everybody else, and we're concerned about you as well. And since you're a premium member, we need to do some things to your computer remotely to try to fix it. Well, my years being old as I am and having gone through as many scams as I've gone through, my ears popped up and I thought, well, this sounds like it could be a scam or something. But then I thought, well, maybe I better listen to him, because it wasn't out of the area code, and I didn't know what the area code is supposed to be for Microsoft. But I do have a premium service with them to keep an eye on my computer in the event of malware. It does communicate back with the Microsoft servers, so they keep an eye on me. I don't have anything to hide, so I have no problem opening my computer up and allowing them to make sure that I'm all cleaned out. And I use the Microsoft virus protection and all that stuff. It's all Microsoft stuff. But anyway, this guy, he knew what web page I was looking at, so somehow he was able to convince me by what he said that he had to be had some knowledge about my computer. And so I thought, well, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and listen to him. But there wasn't anything wrong with the computer. The computer had always performed flawlessly. I use Windows, so I better not tell you, but I haven't had any trouble, and not like the old XP. I'll just tell you I don't have that, but the newer ones are much better. But this fella, I listened to him, and he said, he said, take your browser to this website and look at this. He said, and this website will quickly analyze your computer, and you'll see what the malware is that we're talking about, and then I'll help you clean it off your computer. So it sounded like an innocuous, sounded like an innocent enough phone call, and I thought, well, what harm could there be? My virus software will protect me against any bad websites. So I went to this website, and basically went there, and he told me to push one of the buttons, which it didn't download anything, but it came up with a long list of triangles with red and yellow exclamation points in there, and it said malware, serious, serious malware, which should be removed immediately. So anyway, he convinced me by showing me that, and some other things that he said that made me think that he knew me well enough that I thought this had to be Microsoft. And I allowed him to, God forbid, control my computer remotely for a few moments, and he typed a few things in, and then he went and looked in mine. He said, oh, he said, the trouble with your computer is coming from your AOL email account. He said, that's where this whole trouble's coming from. So I went, he said, well, log in. So I logged in. I didn't think he could see my password or anything, but I logged in while he was on a session with me, so maybe he could see what buttons I pressed. Believe me, folks, I know I'm stupid. I shouldn't have done that, but he sounded legitimate enough, and he knew enough about the computer that he seemed like an expert, and I thought, well, what harm possibly could he do? Well, a lot, I suppose. So bottom line is, he said yes, 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 and then he asked me for $99. Now I do know there's a program at Microsoft for $99 that per year that will fix any issue you have, and for just $99 a year you pay, and then if you ever have an issue during the year you call up, and then every year you just pay them another 99 bucks. So I didn't want to pay him anything because honestly there wasn't anything wrong with the computer, and I thought, well, I'll just run my virus software again and it will clean out everything, because from time to time it catches a virus and it stops it, always stops it, and quarantines it and kills it. You know, I pick up something every week or so, but it's immediately stopped, and haven't had any hard drive crashes or anything like that in years. Now, back when the Allstate thing was going, I was crashing all the time, like every couple of months, and I actually caught a guy 5 o'clock in the morning on my front step in the dark with a computer in his hand in the dark and a hoodie on, and he had turned my computer on from outside. He had turned my I had a computer by my bed. It was a multimedia center, and one of my big media centers that was stolen was in my bedroom. And this guy was able to turn it on from outside, and he was doing it about once or sometimes twice a week at about 5 o'clock in the morning, right before the sun would come up. And you could hear that particular computer had big powerful fans and it was noisy, so it would sort of wake you up in the morning, and you'd be like, "Ah, geez, why is my computer coming on by itself?" Because I would leave it off. And so one day someone said, "You ought to look around your neighborhood and see when the thing comes on to see if anybody's doing a Wi-Fi hack on you, or somehow maybe they're Bluetooth connecting to you or something like that." And I thought, well, I've got all those things turned off. I mean, it shouldn't do that. I'm hardwired on an Ethernet wire. And they said, well, just do it anyway, because I had a wireless keyboard and a wireless mouse, and I could stand across the room and type into my computer and see it on the big screen TV. So I had a very expensive, nice setup. However, I guess that was to my disadvantage, because apparently this particular fellow was able to figure all that out. And so one day, years ago, I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning when that thing went off, and I put my robe on and grabbed my 9mm pistol and went outside with a flashlight and opened the door. Since I opened the door, I saw a man standing just about 20 feet from my front door behind a bush, and it wasn't a substantial bush, so I could see the outline of the guy. It was sort of a pear-shaped man with a hoodie on, and looked like a white guy, middle-aged, with a fat belly, pear-shaped body, and but he had a laptop glowing in the dark as my computer was booting itself. Excuse me. Hello? Yes, I'm on TV right now. Let me call you back. Thanks. So I grabbed my gun, and I was going to aim it at the guy, but I actually never, like I told you before, I never had to pull my gun out, and I didn't see where he was armed with anything other than a laptop computer. But I was so smoking mad that this guy, because my computer had crashed about 10 times in the last couple of years, and this whole coming on in the morning thing had been going for a while. So now I put two and two together and realized that it was this guy doing it, because he was there, and it was still dark out. Anyway, when he saw I was there, he closed the laptop and turned around, and he started to walk away. So I mean, what was I going to do, shoot him in the back? I mean, so and I would have chased him down and just tackled him down and held him down, but I was barefoot and I didn't want to get into a brawl. By then he was on the street, and I don't like street fighting barefoot, so so I just figured I'll call the cops. I figured they'll catch him down the street. The cops only take a minute to get to my house, so I called them, but they never came. I said, "Oh, there's a guy walking down the street." I said, he's got a laptop and he was sitting on my front step turning my computer on from inside. Well, anyway, the cops never came, and I thought, well, maybe they caught him down the street. I watched him walk all the way down the street. I didn't follow him because I didn't have any shoes on, and I figured, well, now I knew at that point what was happening, so I figured I could just stop it from happening again, and no reason to do anything bad to this guy. I suppose if I had my shoes on, I'd have gone after him. But anyway, and I thought the cops would, but they didn't. But anyway, after that, kind of everything sort of calmed down. Then my house was burglarized. That computer was stolen. Insurance company went bankrupt, so wasn't paid to replace any of that stuff. So then everything's been kind of sort of peaceful. Went without a computer for a while, other than a crappy laptop. It was so slow I wouldn't even call it a computer. And then so everything's been fine up until this last couple of weeks. I got this telephone call from this fella with the accent, doopy doopy doop, and he told me he was from Microsoft, and bottom line is I believed him. And so after a few minutes, it came down to he wanted $99, and I said, no, my computer's running fine. I said, if I run into trouble, then I'll call you. And he said, well, that might be too late. And he said, you could lose all of your photographs and everything. And I said, well, I've got everything backed up, and also I'm used to computer crashes. If anything crashes, it's not going to stop me, but it slowed me down a little. It ain't going to stop me. So I blew him off and I hung up, and then he called again the next day, and I said, no, stop calling me. And I called Microsoft right away, and they said, no, we never call anybody. So I knew right away it was bad news. So I just changed the password on everything that I had. Including my email, my login code, administrative code, I mean everything. I changed all those passwords twice, and everything was fine until about 3 days ago. This is why you haven't seen me do any videos. I was watching the news in the morning, wondering what I was going to talk about on the Today Show, for the Ben Cola Show for that day, and a server notice came up and said, your internet service just went off. Now, I know it had nothing to do with paying the bill or anything, and it said someone's trying to hack your computer and take potentially steal banking information or credit card information, whether. So the service provider had slammed my internet connection shut. They firewalled shut it by simply stopping my modem. And I thought, holy cow. So I called them up, and they said, well, hang on a minute, and then they just put me into an automatic computer voice that said, we see your computer needs to be, your router needs to be rebooted. So the computers seem to be working fine, and I figured, well, whatever, they'll reboot the thing, and I told them what happened, so I figured they'd give me a new IP address automatically or something. But so they restarted my computer automatically with a telephonic prompting just saying, you know, is your green light on now? Push 1 for yes or 2 for no. And so I went through the prompts, and the thing came back on by itself, and I just went about my business. And then I started to notice that some of my video files weren't working right. My Sony software wasn't working right, and the file extension types had been changed, and they weren't opening. And the ones that were opening were, the sound was all screwed up, and I thought, oh my God, you know, here we go again. But the computer was working fine. It wasn't like he crashed any of the hardware. It's just he had done something to corrupt the computer. So I called Microsoft, and they did a session with me, and they cleaned it out. They found 5 or 6 malwares that were placed on the hard drive. And it took me a couple of days to reorganize, and I had to go and manually change a lot of files. I had to go back and change the file type, and luckily there wasn't really any damage or anything, but some things were moved around, and the file type extensions were changed. And so you know, it's funny because I didn't know what the file extensions were supposed to be, because in my computer, you know, when you're in the Sony browser, it doesn't tell you that stuff. So basically, I'm kind of going with the flow, and everything is so automated now that I just didn't worry about it. But I suddenly then became very interested again, and wondering, you know, what to do. So anyway, with some more help from Microsoft, I guess they called the authorities too. I kind of asked them, please call the authorities. You know, here's the guy's phone number, and they sent me a questionnaire, and I sent it back to them. And then when I went to send the questionnaire back to them, the questionnaire, instead of going to Microsoft, the questionnaire came back to me. So I thought, oh, this is strange. It looked like it went to Microsoft, but then about 5 minutes later it came back, and it didn't say it didn't go to Microsoft, it just came back in my inbox. And then there was a little message typed on it. It said, "This is a Microsoft alias website." And I thought, what the hell? You know, they have somehow snatched my my email, and so I had to call up AOL, and they had to clean some things out, and they said, yeah, this is what's happening to people. And what happens is when you go to email somebody, when you hit the send button, the email gets an extra extension put on the back, and then it directs your email back to yourself. And then I guess they have access to read your email because they figured out a way of getting into your inbox. So anytime you email something, either it goes where it's supposed to go or it doesn't. But either way, when you email something, it comes back to you. So I'm figuring they're able to see anything that you send out, they're able to read. So they, you know, if you send out any kind of information that's sensitive information like a credit card number or something, they can read all your emails. So, I mean, this thing kind of goes deep, and these guys have brass nuts, I'm telling you, and they were still calling me, too. So, anyway, it seemed like they stopped calling me, although I did get a funny error message today that said, while I was watching the internet, it said, you know, my router had slammed shut again. So for about 10 minutes, the router had shut down. So it looks like my service provider is also looking out for me. But when the router went off the first time, a couple of days ago, they called me like 10 minutes later. After my service got shut off, they called me and they said, "Are you ready to pay us now?" I mean, talk about a shakedown, you know. I mean, if I could have got my hands around their neck, I could have paid them real well, you know. But anyway, so everything's fine. I mean, they haven't been able to corrupt anything. I have plenty of protection on my computer, and I just don't see. I mean, even if they take the system down, I mean, it's not going to stop me. I have all my data secure, but whatever. Let's anyway, that's what I've been doing, just kind of dealing with these people and these creeps, and I think the FBI is after them and everything now because I've got several numbers on them, and I turned them all in, and every time they call, they had a different number, and then I called them one of the numbers back because they left a called and they didn't leave a message, and I didn't answer, and I called the phone back, and so now I knew the number that I dialed back, so they couldn't be spoofing the caller ID. Unless they can do that too, but I called the number back, and it was him when he answered. I recognized his voice and I recognized the accent, and then he hung up on me real fast. So right away I called the authorities and Microsoft, and so I guess they're probably hot on his heels now at this point because I had his caller ID, so that obviously goes to some logical address. So in any case, I'm just telling you, if you get Microsoft, by the way, told me that they're getting thousands of phone calls from people who are saying that these people are calling from pretending that they're from Microsoft and saying that your computer has malware in it, and we're looking out for your best interest, and please please do what we say and push these buttons on your computer. Don't listen to it. If you get a call like that, just hang up and call the police. Do not. Microsoft told me that they do not ever call anybody. So, and if they do, they'll have a case number where you have already called them, and they have a case number, and they'll read that number to you, and that's how you can qualify it. And by the well, that's the main thing. They'll have a case number that matches. So if they don't, the bad guy wouldn't know what that case number would be. But to make a long story short, so that kind of slowed me down. I want to tell you a funny story about when I was a young bachelor, flying my airplane every day in the insurance and the real estate business. I had started dating this girl who turned out to be, you know, I met her at a dance one night, and I didn't know that she was so hot that she was apparently she was a dancer, and it didn't matter anyway to me here or there, but she was a dancer. And she was very hot. She was attracted to me, I guess, for some unknown reason. And she had very, very long legs. It was one of her features. So anyway, she had a hell of a sense of humor. It was very funny. Had beautiful hair, and a very pretty face and very, very long legs, perfect figure. And she said, you know, if you want to date, you know, I'd be happy to go on dates with you and stuff, and maybe we can hit it off, or not if you don't want to see me anymore. You know, so I said, well, I'll take you for an airplane ride. So she had a bikini. It was a small bikini, and it showed her hot body, and she came with my best friend. He had a girlfriend too, who also was quite hot, and she had her bikini on, and they were wearing high-heel shoes. Now, I don't know where they thought we were going, but we were going to the beach. Maybe they thought I was going to take them to Atlantic City or something, but I didn't. I told them I was going to take them to Ocean City, where I had my boat. I figured I could take them to the beach, take them for a boat ride or something like that too. So I figured I'd take them down there. And then I thought, well, it was the weekend and traffic was ridiculous, so I thought, well, you know what, I'll just I'll take them to Ocean City, but instead of Ocean City, New Jersey, I'll take them to Ocean City, Maryland. That's about a 6-hour drive, because you got to go all the way around. But I had an airplane, so I could fly there in about 45 minutes, even though it was a couple hundred miles away. So I asked the girls if they wanted to go for an airplane ride and go to the beach in Maryland instead of the beach in New Jersey. And they were like, yeah. So they were all excited about going for an airplane ride. And they said, what should we bring? What should we wear? I said, well, just wear what you would ordinarily wear to go to the Jersey beach, and I'll take you to Ocean City instead. Okay. So we all went down to the airport and got into my airplane and took off, and they were a little bit nervous. And it's funny because you can always find out how much a girl weighs when you're getting into the airplane. You ask them how much they weigh, because you've got your calculator up at this weight calculator, because you have to know that they were obviously, I didn't have to really ask them how much they weighed, but because you have one of these things. It's an it's a pilot's calculator for calculating weights and balance and airspeed and all that stuff, fuel burn, so forth and so on. And so anyway, I flew them down to Ocean City, and we landed. They wanted to smoke in the airplane. I said, no, no smoking, in the airplane. So we flew down, and we got there, landed, and I pulled up to the tarmac, and got out of the airplane. I was tying the airplane down, and the girls got out with their bikinis on, and they had high heel shoes on. It was kind of like the first I really noticed how high their heels were, but I mean, these girls had high heel shoes, and they were looking pretty hot. And the next thing I know, while I'm tying the airplane down, I hear this booming voice coming through the megaphone from the ground traffic controller and the tower. The tower apparently was looking at the girls with the bikinis on, and they were both smoking. And so they were both standing there like this, and with that look, that they're the prettiest thing in the world, and they just have that look, like often like in the distance. They don't look at people, they just sort of look in the distance like you're not good enough to look at. But that's kind of like the attitude. They were like attitude, women with attitudes, very pretty, and they're just standing there with their bathing suits on, waiting for me to tie the airplane down and get my bag out of the plane so that I could take them wherever, to the beach. And so they must have been nervous for the airplane ride, and they were smoking a cigarette like this, and all of a sudden the tower called through the PA system, and it was a big voice boomed across the airport. I mean, it's a mile-long runway. You can imagine. I mean, the tower is like half a mile away, and that's where the PA microphone was, the speaker, and the speaker went, "Put out the cigarette now! Put out the cigarette now! There is no smoking! Put out the cigarettes now!" So the girls dropped the cigarette. Both girls simultaneously were stunned by of course, it's a loud PA system. I mean, my God, I jumped too, and I wasn't, didn't smoke ever. So, but the girls dropped the cigarettes, and when they dropped the cigarettes, they hit the ground, and the wind was blowing, and the cigarettes started to roll across the tarmac. They were rolling like this, and smoke was coming off, and they were rolling in the direction that the smoke was going. And both girls, and the voice said, "Put those cigarettes out now. Do you realize there's 1 million gallons of 100-octane fuel underneath the ground right where you are? That you're going to blow the whole airport up." And they kept screaming, the airport's going to explode, the airport's going to explode, put those cigarettes out immediately. And the girls with the high heel shoes, to put the cigarettes out, they would step on them. But they couldn't catch a cigarette because the wind was blowing. It's the funniest thing I ever saw in my life. I wish, you know, I would pay a fortune to have a video of that scene, you know, with the microphone blasting, put out the cigarettes, and these girls in high heel shoes and bikinis going like this, and the cigarette going like this, and they couldn't catch a cigarette, and it was rolling, and the voice kept saying, the gasoline is going to explode, there's 1 million gallons of fuel. And so eventually, I mean, the girls caught the cigarette, and they were stomping on it and stomping on it, and then so when I went in and signed in, they yelled at me, and that was the end of that. But I mean, it was just so funny. I mean, to see these girls. I mean, they must have gone like this on their high heel shoes for like 50 yards, chasing that lit cigarette. It was rolling across the tarmac, you know, with the wind blowing. But both girls going like this, chasing cigarettes. Oh God, you know. Believe me, I have way more stories than that are even funnier. But if I could have a video, I mean, gosh, you know, now I carry a camera around with me all the time because you never know when something's going to happen. And people always say, oh, you're full of crap, Cola, you know, you tell these stories. Believe me, folks. So I bring a camera with me now so I can take a picture and say, this is true. Anyway, we donate, my wife and I donate to the Joyce Meyer, you know, we don't put in a lot of money, but we give them a few bucks if we can. Joyce Meyer Ministry. We really love Joycey. And, you know, we just got this magazine the other day, and I was reading it, and it says, do it afraid. Do it afraid. And I thought, gee, you know, that kind of sounds like what I'm doing. Do it afraid. It says, we all have fears, but God wants to give you the strength to face them head on. It may be fear of failure, rejection, loss of control, or whatever that has a grip on you. You can still triumph. Just do it afraid. Say goodbye to fear and live courageously. And folks, you couldn't say it better than that. And I'll tell you the truth, you know, this is kind of scary, you know. You're talking about issues that some people disagree with and get hysterical over, frankly. And you never know, you know, when you're running, you announce that you want to run for office, or you have ideas and you may want to change things, and it's going to affect people's lives, or they think you're a nut, or they want to kill you, or you get death threats all the time. I mean, I had somebody call me last year and said, do you sell life insurance? I said, no, and then he hung up on me. I thought, gee, what the hell? And you know, the area code was from Washington. So, I don't know, just, you know, I don't know why somebody from Washington, D.C. would call and ask me if I sell life insurance and then hang up on me. But, so yeah, it's guys like me, Alex Jones and Gerald Salente and the X-22 guy, Dave, I don't even know what his last name is, who seems to know what's going on around the world, and it's not what you see on Fox News. And but if you follow these guys and what they say, you can usually verify that what they're saying is true. And you know, the world is a rough neighborhood, folks. When you live in America, you're really quite lucky, and you're sheltered from a lot of the evil of the world. And you should be glad that you're an American. And it is a rough world out there. And you know, I talk to sailors that come into my port all the time, and they tell me that you know, these stories, and a lot of them are good, but sometimes bad things happen too. And so you know, it's scary. But let's talk about some issues again. Let's talk about what I would do about the economy if I were in charge. I don't think, I'm not one of these nuts like that think that the dollar is going to collapse, and that think that the world is going to come to an end, or we're going to go into some kind of a Great Depression, or end the Fed. And I mean, look, folks, if you're looking for that, I'm not going to talk like that, because that's not what I'm all about. I'm about getting back to basics on the Constitution, and I'm about doing everything I can to stimulate business in America, and let's get our businesses rocking and rolling again so that we can get some jobs going and make some money. And I think that what we all need to do is to sort of have maybe not as high of an expectation of becoming very wealthy, or maybe an expectation of owning a great big giant home and 2 cars and live in an expensive upscale neighborhood, and your car is bigger than a neighbor. I think that we all, as modern Americans, need to just think about that we're very fortunate that we're Americans, and B, we're going to fix the government by going back to basics and the Constitution, and putting people in charge that are going to honor your constitutional rights, and by securing our border and protecting what is ours, namely our country, and that is the border that goes around our country, and we're going to know who comes and we're going to know who goes, and we're not going to seal ourselves off from the rest of the world, but we're going to know who comes and goes. And there won't be any ISIS in the United States, not with me in charge. There won't be any Boko Haram. There won't be any kooks running around. And if there are, they won't last but 30 minutes or so, and it'll be all over under any kind of administration with me. But on the other hand, I want there to be constitutional protections. I want the average citizen to be able to be armed. And I think that would put an end to a lot of troublemakers, and I would like neighborhood watches to be enhanced. So like when my house got burglarized, I mean, if my neighbors had been a little more vigilant, maybe they could have stopped it. Maybe they saw who was coming and going, and maybe they just thought they were my friends and they didn't call the police. I mean, they could have wasted a phone call to the police and called the cops and said, look, it looks like somebody's banging on Ben's door or going into his house, and I never saw him before. And I mean, that could have stopped my burglary, the burglary of my home, from happening, because the police would have come, and they know me, and they'd have anybody coming in my house, they'd have grabbed him and taken him downtown and put him in a jail cell till I came down to see who the hell they were. But in any case, look, folks, don't be afraid of these things you see on TV, that the ISIS is going to come and they're going to kill everybody, and ain't happening. Not in America. Isn't going to happen. They may try. Now, the real danger would be if they were to try to smuggle some kind of a very dangerous weapon of some kind that could kill en masse. But this, trying to cut everybody's head off, I mean, you can imagine that's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin, folks. I know they wouldn't last very long around here. Somebody might lose their head, but I know they wouldn't last very long. And now, what I would do, one of the things I would do besides restore the Constitution, is I would make sure that I beefed up the Small Business Administration. I told you the story in my earlier videos about how I got a start, and the Small Business Administration helped me, albeit they didn't come through with the money until about a year after I had already opened the business. I did apply, and I did receive a $16,000 1% loan from the SBA about a year after my business was opened, even though it was approved about 6 months into it. It took 6 months additional time for the money tranche to be approved through the Congress. And so it gave me a bit of a boost. If I didn't get that money, it wouldn't have stopped me from proceeding, because I had already gotten to the point where I wasn't going to fail. It was just going to be slower growth. But I am kind of surprised to, when I look at the numbers now, the Small Business Administration is actually very small, and it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing right now. And these banks are not lending to these small business owners. Now, I have to remember the small business owners, a lot of them who we need to stand back up, they've been ripped, like me and like my wife. I mean, we have been ripped horribly, and our credit has suffered, and we've suffered, and my doctor even said you probably have shock syndrome of the brain or something from all the things that happened to you, you know, having business and all the things that happened, and then the banks saying they didn't have any money when it came time that you needed help, and then days later, I mean, they say the same thing to your wife. Well, actually, they told her first, and then they told me days later, a different bank, they told the same storyline. Obviously, they weren't able to get money to lend to businesses as the economy was going down. So, look, folks, I think that an effort needs to be made where the Small Business Administration needs to be funded, and I don't care if we have to have a QE4, but the money needs to go not to Wall Street, it needs to go to the small business owners, with no middlemen, no congressmen getting kickbacks, no senators getting kickbacks. We need to have an effort where we go back and we actually look for people like my wife, and we look for people like me who were in business, and we were already moving along, we already had our licenses, we were already operating, and the economy just suddenly turned negative, and the TV was lying and telling us that things were going to be okay and just keep on trucking, and so our expenses just kept on rolling while the income side of the equation went down. If we didn't have a TV, we would have just we wouldn't have thought that there was going to be any kind of a turnaround, because we could see that business was going down in every different direction, and if we weren't watching Fox News, we would have just shut our businesses down while we still had money in the bank, and we wouldn't have suffered the losses that we did. But in any case, those very same people, if they're willing, need to be tracked down, verified that they were the original owners of the business, and they need to be refunded, and they need to be stood back up. And I don't even care if you give them not a loan, but I think they should be given grants for just being good sports and hanging in there as long as they did. We have shopping centers up and down our main boulevards here that are empty, just one after the other, and these were all small stores. And as they started falling, they just fell apart like dominoes. Now you may ask, well, and the banks are going to say, well, where are they going to get the customers, and what products are they going to make? Well, look, I've got that answer too. We need to start looking at, instead of being a service-based economy, we need to start actually making things, because the rest of the world is angry at us. And they're angry at us because we're chasing ISIS, and some people think that ISIS is actually making of the CIA or something like that. I mean, look, folks, I'm just saying that whatever they think, the point is our military is doing a good job doing what they do, and we need to be a little more independent. So if the shit hits the fan, and I'm not saying we're going to go into a depression, that the dollar is going to crash, and no, but if the rest of the world, for one reason or another, says we don't want to take the dollar, all we want are rubles or yuan or renminbi or brick currency, then fine. Let them suck on their bricks and sink on their bricks, or whatever they want to do. The United States is not going anywhere, folks. This is the most beautiful country. We have the most beautiful piece of real estate here that God could ever have carved out on the earth, from the west coast of California to the east coast of Maryland and Maine, and down to Florida and the Carolinas, and the central part of the United States, the breadbasket of the United States, from Texas and all the way up to Canada. This is a very, very beautiful country. We have virtually unlimited agricultural possibilities, and we could feed the earth so many times over. We have oil, We might not have the most amount of oil, but we have enough oil that we can get by and to run the agricultural machinery necessary to plow up our agricultural land and always have food, no matter what the rest of the world does. If they were to embargo us or just to say we don't like you and cut us off, we're not going to starve, folks. The sun will come up in the east and it will set in the west, no matter what the other countries think about us. We can make everything right here in the United States that we need. And I'm saying that we need less than you probably think we need. Most people want to become rich and millionaires and they want to have a bigger car than the neighbor. That's not the way to look at life, folks. You're not trying to be the richest guy on the block. Your goal in life is to have a good clean soul and good clean morals, and to have a good clean environment, and to be able to wake up every morning knowing that you're an honest man or woman, and that you can go outside and you can feel the breeze on your face and you can look at the sky and see how blue it is that day, or maybe how gray it is that day, or whether the sun's shining, and feel the breeze on your face. That's what life's about. It's not about having the biggest car or the fastest car. It's not about having the biggest house or the newest this or the newest that. You don't need a lot of money to live and be happy. It's what is in here that counts. My family I was fortunate and grew up in a very wealthy neighborhood, folks. But my father wouldn't spend money on an expensive car. We always had an old car. He paid cash for it. And we always had, our car was usually a clunker, but we had two of them, one for my mom, one for my dad. And they always got us by it. If it broke down, they'd get it fixed. But we never had the newest car. We didn't own a Cadillac. All of my neighbors owned Cadillacs. They were all in the banking business. My father worked for RCA as a think tank engineer. I told you he was a genius, a genius engineer, and he came up with many ideas and the technology that is being in use today with the Navy. And undersea warfare was his specialty, and he invented the phased array radar, which of course is not any big secret anymore. But and also he worked on upgrading the radar for the Nike Zeus and the Nike Hercules program. I went there one day. I actually saw the missiles. I didn't know they were that close to our house. They were in the next town over, and they showed them to me as a little boy. I didn't find out until a couple of years ago that they had nuclear warheads on them, and I was right there. And my father didn't work in that building per se every day, but he upgraded the radar and would go there and ask them what they needed and saw what they had, and he'd go back to RCA in Morristown, and then they would work on it. But we didn't need to have the most expensive car in the neighborhood. And frankly, we didn't have the biggest house in the neighborhood either, but we did live in a nice neighborhood, and I did have benefit of going to the finest school. But I had the least amount of money of all of my friends to spend on my newspaper route. I earned some money. I actually got more out of my newspaper route by selling the newspaper subscriptions, but they didn't pay you for that. They would give you awards, and I told you I went to Miami for a week as a 10-year-old kid. I went to Washington. I went to the UN. I went to New York. I toured all around because I won these free trips that they fly around the country. But the fact is, the United States has all of the resources that we need. That there can't be a collapse. If the dollar were to collapse, and other countries were, the worst that would happen would be that the other countries wouldn't accept it. But Americans would accept it. It's American money. And if you can buy your goods and services within America, then it doesn't matter if the other countries will accept it or not. Now, it would create a problem with foreign trade, but the bottom line is, I mean, when you listen to these guys on the internet and they say, look, we're heading for a depression, folks, and there's not going to be any food, and the dollar's not going to be worth anything. Well, it might not be worth anything to the Chinese, but screw them. We should be making that stuff right here. Now look, I just went through my garage and I just grabbed a few things because I wanted to try to make a point. A light bulb. This light bulb was probably made in China. It doesn't say where the hell the thing was made. It says Utilitech or something on it. This is one of those curly Q light bulbs. It gets good gas mileage. I have a lot of them because I like a lot of light. When you have a lot of light in the room, it keeps you from getting depressed. And by the way, I have no depression problem. I'm always a cheery guy. The most depressed I ever got was when a big real estate deal went down the drain and I lost a lot of my own money when I was a principal. It would bother me a little bit, but I never got depressed over my life or some kind of thing like that. I got angry that the bank lied to me or something like that. But I never got clinically depressed. Never had to take antidepressants or anything like that. But I can tell you I feel a lot happier when I turn all these lights, and they don't burn much electricity. I swapped out all my bulbs from those, the old-fashioned kind that look yellowish, and they're the incandescent. They have a filament in there that gets real hot. And to get 100 watts of light, you got to put 100 watts of electricity into them. That's a lot of electricity. It runs your electric bill up. These things put out 100 watts worth of light, which I think is 1600 lumens, but it only costs about 23 watts or something to run it. So I swapped out all my bulbs and changed my air conditioner, and I dropped my electric bill $100 a month just doing that. And I can keep my lights on at night, and it keeps away the bad people. And the lights go on at night. I've got these kind of bulbs outside, and you know what, the first 6 months or so it seemed kind of hokey because the neighbors look over and they had the other kind that flicker and stuff, and being in an upscale neighborhood that I live in, although there's crime here, it's an upscale neighborhood, they look at these bulbs, and now all the neighbors have these kind of bulbs on their outside lights as well. I guess they kind of took a cue from me and decided that wasn't such a bad idea. But look, there's no reason that the Small Business Administration can't fund a small startup business and make these. And that would employ, I don't know, 100 people, 200 people. How many people would it take to make enough bulbs to make bulbs for the United States? And then we could export whatever we could to the people that still like us. This thing. This is one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. I use these all the time in the boating. When you're a boat captain, you have to be able to go out, do things in the dark. Sometimes bad things happen in the dark, and you always need lights. And I found that these work well. Now this thing's made in China. This is a Ryobi or Japan. This flashlight costs, I don't know, $12.99 or something. I bought it last week. Bought a couple of them, and I got a bigger one here that's $39. And then these battery packs have lithium in them. I highly recommend them. They're better than the old NiCad kind. And basically, you plug it into a charger, which all made in Asia. You plug it in, turn it on, and the daggone thing is bright, and it stays on for, I don't know, 8 hours on a charge, and it charges up in 30 minutes. And it's good again for 8 hours. And if it sits for a month and a half, it's just as charged a month and a half from now as it was the day you put it away. There is no reason we shouldn't be making these here, folks. Now, the reason I like these lights is because they also power other things. Now, you guys know this. I'm a big advocate of tools because, like I say, my hobby is fixing up boats, and we need tools to fix boats up. It's a hobby, okay? I try to make a buck out of it, but it's hard because everything. This is When my drill got stolen, I had to go get another one, and they had changed the style. This is a Ryobi drill, and it takes, oddly enough, I don't mean to be a Ryobi salesman, but I'm going to tell you a funny story about Ryobi. I tried to get them to buy the story from me, but they wouldn't. They said they would, and then they never answered me. But you could take the same battery, plug it into this, and you've got your, and it lasts a long time, dude. And you can put a screwdriver tip on the end here. Well, I took the battery up, but anyway, you can see I'm pretty handy with this thing. And you can screw anything in, and it has a torque control, and then you can like this and put it in reverse and unscrew things. I mean, you could build a whole house like this house I'm in along with your buddy in about 3 weeks. So that brings me to item number 2. Why should houses cost so much money? Now that we have these high-powered tools, we don't need a hammer to hammer. We don't need a hammer anymore to hammer a house together. We have these. I'll leave this on my flashlight in case the bad guy from India comes around tonight and I need to plug him. I want to make sure I can see him before I pump him full of bullets. There you go. Now, other things. I don't know where this is made. This is a Lufkin tape. I told you I'm an insurance adjuster, you know, and we have to measure things all the time. That's what adjusters do. They measure stuff. And then you figure out how much it costs to fix the item by how many linear feet you have times how many dollars per linear foot it costs for labor to install the item. So it's labor plus the cost of the material, and simple as that. And then how much do you need? So you measure how much material you need, and then you multiply it times the factor of what the labor is per foot for installation plus the cost of the material, and it's as simple as that. I mean, a moron could be an insurance adjuster. Well, they wouldn't trust you. They have to trust you too, or they won't let you do it. And but they could be made here. And why don't we have a business in the United States? You know, when there's a hurricane, you know what happens when there's a hurricane? Ask me. I know what happens when there's a hurricane because I handled 2,000 hurricane claims. The fences all blow down. Everybody's fences all the fences blow down. So we either measure it with that, or if it's smooth, you just press this button here. This is made by the same people. I don't even know if it's a U.S. company or not. Lufkin. All I know is I needed it for being an adjuster. So, and you open it up like this, and you roll it along, and it tells you how many linear feet of fence you need to pay for, and you write up a report and you submit that to the company. No reason that we shouldn't have a company in the United States making that. We have fresh water in the United States. Think about the poor African nations. They have no fresh water. My God. Even if we didn't have fresh water, I can tell you how to make fresh water out of salt water. We do it all the time. It's a little expensive. You need a lot of electricity. But through reverse osmosis, you can squeeze salt water so hard through a filter membrane that the salt doesn't come through and fresh water comes out the other end. But it has to be squeezed so hard. It takes a lot of electrical force and therefore a lot of electric energy. But who has more electricity than anybody in the world? We do. We have 100 nuclear power plants in the United States right now that produce so much power that you can't even turn them off. If you turn them off, they'd overheat and explode. Well, not really. They'd have to be a controlled shutdown. But I'm just saying, it's like use it or lose it. The point is, we have excess capacity. And now everybody's switching over to these light bulbs when the capacity that we have now is designed for people with the other kind of light bulbs. So you see how this is working? As we become more efficient with the electrical items that we have. And by the way, these batteries can be charged up with solar power. These are Ryobi batteries. And now we're using 75% less electricity for the same amount of light in our light bulbs in our house, and our television sets. You know, a television set that's got a screen about this big only uses 40 watts. The old-fashioned TV, the same size, uses about 300, 350. So your electric bill is lower. But, you know, the old orcs like to jack up the power bill because they see, well, you're using less, so what do? They want to make sure that they keep charging. You see, so now, see, I have a problem with that. I would make sure the utility companies don't take advantage of the savings, because we were told to drive less, drive smaller cars, conserve gas, don't do unnecessary driving carpools. Line up your trips so that you can go to the store, three or four stores at once instead of going every day to a different store. Plan your trips. Go when there's no traffic. Plan your timing. So we did all those things. And what did they do? They raised the price of the gas anyway. Now it's coming back down. It's coming back down because the inventory's high. Why is the inventory high? Well, because nobody's going anywhere. The Americans are listening to what they're supposed to do. They're following instructions. We switched out our light bulbs like we were supposed to do. Good Americans. And saving you money. We're driving smaller cars. I mean, listen, I don't have the money to go and buy a brand new. I used to buy a new car every 2 years. Corvette or something, usually a Corvette, back in my bachelor days. And pretty expensive. Now I'm driving a 4-cylinder car. So it's a Mercedes, but it's a 4-cylinder car, and it gets like 37 miles to the gallon, and it's 20 years old, but it looks like new. So by shopping around, I bought that. But look, folks, just a couple of other things. This is Hitachi. That's Japanese. Tools, you know what that is. There's screwdriver heads and drills. They're accessories for the Ryobi. But it's Hitachi. No reason these can't be made in America. Small Business Administration could open up a business and they could make these. How about a GPS? This is a Nuvi garment. This is what I use. And I'm pretty sure this is made in Taiwan, I believe, Taiwan. There's no reason this thing needs to be made in Taiwan. It should be made in America. So, you know, if the Russians or the Chinese don't want to make this crap for us, screw them. Folks, we have Barry Manilow. Folks, they don't have Barry Manilow. My wife loves Barry Manilow. Guess where Barry Manilow came from? He came from the United States. So did the rock band Chicago and Styx. I mean, these guys, we have the best rock bands in the world. Here's the package that Barry Manilow stuff came in the other day from my wife. Look, folks, what I'm saying is we have water. We have a pool of labor that is not being used right now, namely the people who are unemployed. You don't have to have a high-paid job here, because in my way of doing things, everything is going to cost less, so you won't have to work 40 hours either. I propose an average work week to be maybe 30 hours or 25 hours, so you can spend more time at home. And you'll make enough money to buy food because we're going to just grow more and it'll make more. And we're going to take steps to make sure that there are no monopolies. We're going to use our antitrust laws to make sure that things don't go out of sight. We're going to restore the price of medication. There aren't going to be any pills that you have to pay for that are going to cost more than $1 or $2. You know, no more of these $100 prescriptions. I mean, I'm looking on the internet. I was looking at price sheets on some of these medications, and it says $3,000, $4,000 is the retail price. And do you know, under Obamacare, they're paying it. If you have a government employee and you go in there and you have a medication prescription, they'll charge you $4,000 and charge it against the insurance company to the government. When, if I go in as an ordinary person paying myself, I'll shop around and buy the same thing for $10. Well, look, you know, there's no reason for the disparity here. These are just rip-off con artists. And the medicine's not being made in the United States. Now, all those jobs could come back to the United States. We have the landmass, the size, the labor force. The only thing that's missing is the investment. But we have the Fed for the investment. And I swear to you, folks, Small Business Administration will lend to you if you want to open up a business. and start making this stuff. And we are going to be competitive. And there is no reason that the price of your house has to be a high. You can have a nice house in a small neighborhood, and it could be a smaller house. No more laws where, hey, you can't build a house on this lot unless you build a 3,000 square foot house. In many areas of the United States, if you buy a lot, you have to build a big house. That's the law. We're going to throw that out the window. That's ridiculous. If you want to have a 2-car garage size home, that's fine. Look, the point is that you can get on a bicycle and you can go for a nice ride. You're going to always have plenty of food to eat as an American. You're always going to have clean water. You're always going to have access to transportation. The government needs to be downsized and paid less. Everything can be reorganized. And the debt that we ran up, I'm going to bankrupt it, folks. I'm just going to declare bankruptcy on the Fed, and we're going to wipe it out and start over. None of this paying it back. No. It was all illegally taken out in the name of the people anyway to start with, and it came off of a printing press and is backed by nothing. And we're going to start over again. And we're going to try to make friends around the world. But if not, there isn't going to be any. I'm telling you, folks, the gloom and doomers are full of crap. No one can stop America. And we're a nuclear power, so it's not like they could attack us. You know, once you become a nuclear power, no country can come and take you over. You have mutual assured destruction. So no one can really do anything to us. The only thing to fear is fear itself. We need to get back to work and make our own things and stop relying on other people. And this gloom and doom talk has got to stop, folks. And the expectations will be less, but you can still live a happy, happy life and go fishing in your spare time. Ride a surfboard. Buy a Hobie Cat sailboat and sail around. I recommend a Hobie Cat. And you don't have to work 40 hours a week to be happy. And I'm going to rig things up where costs are low enough that you'll be happy and you'll only be able